supply chainers, wherever you are in the world. This is Sarah Barnes-Humphrey with you today. Are you ready? Let's talk supply chain.
Good morning, everybody, and happy Tuesday. Welcome to Thoughts and Coffee. My name is Sarah Barnes-Humphrey. I'm the founder and host of Let's Talk Supply Chain, as well as the Blended podcast, and also the founder of the Blended Pledge as well. I've got a brand new Zoom background because I am traveling at the moment, and I wanted to share with you some of the fun stuff that we've done over 2023, which I also did in the latest edition of the Monthly Hustle as well, which I'm going to share with you in just a little bit. But before we get started, let's hear from our show sponsors. So say you're at work and all the lights flicker and then go out. You try to move and bump into something. You turn and bump into something else. You just can't work like this. You need to be able to see what's happening. Well, this is how your inventory feels. Fastenal has unique inventory solutions that sends data to the cloud and helps you avoid stockouts while not carrying excess inventory. Don't stay in the dark. Let Fastenal shine a light on the parts and supplies that keep your businesses running. Go to fastenal.com/LTSC to see how they do it. All right, we've got a jam-packed episode for you. Let us know in the comments wherever you're watching. I want to know where you're watching from and what you're most excited about. We've got Amber from Gaines joining me today. But before we do that, let's talk about what's happening with Let's Talk Supply Chain. So we've got a brand new episode 379 with Draymaster. Now we talk about the use of effective rate management to boost your business. And they did a great job of really talking about what it's like to be on the trucking side, but also what it's like to be a 3PL and how they are bringing everybody together in a really, really cool environment. So they are making a huge impact on the industry. So wherever you check out the podcast, whether it's YouTube or Apple Podcasts, Spotify, you name it, go and check out episode 379. What else have we got? On Friday, Eric Johnson is going live with LogTech, and they're talking about why TMS remains essential in modern logistics. Now, remember, if you can't attend live, click the attend button anyways, because I'm going to send you the recording so that you can watch it in your own time. Plus, I've got a brand new monthly hustle. So this time we decided to take a look back on 2023. I don't know about you, but 2023 either went really slow or really fast, and so many things happened this year that I wanted to share it all with you and give you a bit of an insight as to what changed? What did we do? How did we do it? And so go check that out. If you have not signed up for my newsletter, it's called The Monthly Hustle over on LinkedIn. I'd love to hear your thoughts. So put the comments in there as well. And then I want to say a huge thank you. So recently I was honored in being given the second annual Wise Legends Award for Women in Supply Chain Management from the University of Arkansas. Shout out to Stephanie Thomas. Thank you so much for this recognition. I am truly honored and humbled. And this is me in my Wise t-shirt. I got it just before I left with the award. And so I wanted to share that with everybody. And last but not least, we have another Q&A for the Secret Society of Supply Chain coming up at noon Eastern on Thursday. So if you haven't register, come and see me. We're going to be answering all your questions about what it's like to be part of the Secret Society of Supply Chain, what you can expect, and so much more. So I cannot wait to see you all there. All right. Well, without further ado, it is time to bring up Amber. Hello. Good morning. How are you?
Hi, everyone. Good to see you.
It's good to see you too. Now, for anybody that doesn't know you, why don't you give an introduction as to who you are and what you do?
Hi, so I am the Vice President of Industry Solutions at Gain Systems, which is a supply chain technology vendor. And we have a strong emphasis on helping companies where inventory is a big part of their business. And in my role, I'm helping to guide the strategy for our products, new products that we have coming out as well.
Awesome. And I'm super excited for you to be here. We're going to be talking about the poll in just a minute, and then you're going to be giving us an update. So, one of the things, and you guys were recently on the show. So, if you have not learned about gains, go and check out the podcast episode that we did recently. It's either over on letstalksupplychain.com or on our YouTube channel, and go find out a little bit more about them. We talked about, who Gains is, the founder story, what the problems are that you are solving. And it was such a great episode just to get to learn a little bit more about the impact that you're making in the industry. So I love that. All right, let's talk about the poll. We ask everybody a question every single Wednesday morning. So the question that we asked you, what's preventing you from achieving the supply chain outcomes you desired in 2023? Now, we had a tie. After 130 votes, we had a tie at 33%. So some of you said frequent unplanned disruptions or culture isn't open to change. And then we had 27% processes, tech, expertise. Now, Amber, talk to us about this poll, this question. What surprised you the most? What do you think about the results from this?
Yeah, so we wanted to ask this question to get a pulse of, one, have things changed year over year about what's really causing companies to not achieve their outcomes as expected? And I have to say, based on the results, the answer is not really. Things really didn't change much year to year. What I am a bit surprised to see, though, is how high the culture piece is. I think it's important. Yeah. People are recognizing that this is a culture change that you have to go through if you want to start leveraging technology better, leveraging people better to get the expected outcomes in supply chains.
Yeah, culture is huge. I had Tudor from WiseTech or their academy on the show just a little while ago, and he was really talking about change management and the culture. And it was interesting that when you're talking about innovation, when you're talking about technology, one of the things that he said that was the most important thing to do was to sit in the uncomfortable. Let people, allow them to be angry, right? And express it and say why, right? Or let them say what's not going to work, right? What do they have in their minds that isn't going to work, that's going to be a barrier to us sort of hitting that when we're trying to make that change? And so he said to sit in the uncomfortable, which I absolutely thought was a game changer, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I echo that as well. And also in the idea that people might say, if you are being too comfortable, you're not pushing yourself enough. So it means you might not be pushing the organization enough in enacting these changes.
Yeah, that's so true. We need to push ourselves a little bit further for us to be able to make the change, but also create that innovation. Now, Michael says budget restraints. Benita says all of the above. Lisa says people. There are a lot of lone wolves out there. Mark says, but also cultural change, which is part of what we're talking about today. So I want to thank everybody who weighed in on the question of the week. I think that we got some really great results and really have a good understanding about where people are. And we're going to be talking about that a little bit more during this show, because we've got a couple of surveys that we're going to be talking about that have a little bit of different results, which I'm excited to share in just a minute. Now, I want to give a shout out to Michelle, Denise, and Davin over on my personal LinkedIn page. Thanks so much for joining us. And thanks, Davin, for saying congratulations for the win. Now, Amber, give us a bit of a market update. What are, your VP of Industry Solutions, what are you hearing not only internally at Gains, but what are you hearing from some of the customers? What's most important to people right now?
Yeah, so this market has always been exciting. I've been in the market for several years, and it's a very fast evolving market. And I think that's being reflected in what end users are expecting out of their technologies. So we're seeing a lot of questions around the use of advanced analytics, the use of artificial intelligence. In our case specifically, more companies asking about lead time and lead time prediction, and how can you better predict lead time to use that information to help with decision making around inventory.
Amazing. Yeah. And I think those are all things that we're going to be talking a little bit more about today. But it's interesting, right? I feel like we've been talking about technology forever.
Yeah.
I feel like we've been talking about some of these topics for a long time, but I
Yes.
feel like we're still not in a place where we're trusting the data enough to be able to really implement the technology in the way that it's supposed to be used.
A few pieces of that. So one, yes, the data is part of the equation, where if there is no governance policy around data, it might be hard for users to actually trust what's in the system. That idea of garbage in, garbage out still applies, right? But I think there's also some considerations for how we have seen companies think about the evolution of how they use technology, where it used to be that you had your process, and then you would bring a technology in that kind of mimics that technology in a digital form. But what we're seeing in the space today is people realizing that now it's technology that's leading, and technology that's pulling the organization across. So part of the challenge that companies might have today is educating the end user audience of what the technology can do to make their lives better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's really all about that communication and really the deep understanding of what it's actually going to do and how it's going to improve lives. All right, let's talk about the first article. So this article talks about a survey by ASCM, and they're talking about how digital tech top supply chain trends list for 2024. Now, I don't know if this is really surprising. I think what's surprising for me is that, digital technology is still in the top for these trends. I don't think it's ever going to go away, really. But the top ones that they're talking about is advanced analytics, which you just mentioned earlier, Amber. And that's actually going into visibility and flexibility. What did you think about this article? What were some of the takeaways that you had?
Yeah, so the top trends of artificial intelligence, big data analytics, digital supply chain, those are big trends, big buzzwords. I mean, I think that there's a path that people have to go down to really leverage those three aspects very well, because there's what wasn't as pronounced, the things that we've talked about a little bit of the change piece, the organizational design piece, because you can put a new technology in, but if you haven't really thought about how are the folks using the technology going to be able to use it better, then you're not going to get as much as you expect out of the technology, which goes again back to the poll and someone mentioning the people as a big element of not being able to get the expected or achieve supply chain goals for 2023.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Now, one of the things that did surprise me on this list is that sustainability and reshoring are not as high as they were in 2022. Sustainability itself was in the 7th position in 2022. It's now in the 9th position for 2023. And the investment is much lower for sustainability. Now, we're just coming off a sustainability conference over in Dubai, which I'm sure everybody has heard all sorts of things about. I wasn't there, but I do know that supply chain contributes a lot to, obviously, carbon emissions. And I think a lot of the sustainability efforts do need to come from supply chain. And so it's a little bit surprising to me. And what they're saying is that we need some more pressure. So energy being a concern, once that is more of a bigger concern, then that's going to put pressure on so that people are investing more. And they're also saying that reshoring is a long-term strategy, which I thought was surprising as well, because when we talk about the next survey, in the third article that we're going to be talking about today, they actually said that that is something that leaders are talking about because they've redesigned their supply chains in 2023. And so I thought that was fairly interesting. What did you think about those two?
Yeah. So on the sustainability side, to some extent, it doesn't surprise me that the emphasis has been reduced because there's so many other pressures, other disruptions that have occurred over the past year, 18 months or so that are diverting attention from those sustainability objectives to other things like the economic conditions that are going on. I think another challenge that supply chains have are, even though the supply chains themselves might be focusing on some sustainability efforts, they're not necessarily as aligned to the CEO, CFO's visions around sustainability. So, and without that alignment, it might be hard to continue momentum on focusing on sustainability goals and objectives. So if you're balancing a couple of items to try to place focus on, something has to fall out, and it might be the one where you can't necessarily easily see that alignment between what you as a CSO would be focusing on and what those who you are supporting are focusing on. But as for what we then might be seeing as the difference in the contradictory opinions between the two poles, it could be a matter of who was responding to these polls. It could be the specific role, maybe in the one where the idea of nearshoring is more pronounced, might have their emphasis more on inventory needs, whereas the other roles might be more focused on different emission or other sustainability.
That's true. But I think you hit on something really key there, is that we need it to be easy, right? And not so overwhelming for people to really push forward with their sustainability goals and make the investment in that. But I think it's important that we do keep the pressure on so that we are still having those conversations. I want to say hi to Craig and Aaron over on my personal LinkedIn. Now, before we go to the next article, I just want to make a couple of other observations. They talk about tier 2 and tier 3 suppliers, how they cannot meet data accessibility requirements, which is really hindering visibility for a lot of supply chain leaders out there. And then they were talking about generative AI. It's a topic that I think is going to be bigger in 2024. I think people are going to be talking about it more. But what they said was that the data must be trusted for us to be able to go into generative AI. And I'm a little surprised that we're still talking about that, right? Like, I've been talking for years that we need to clean up the data house. We need to make sure that the data house is in order because this is coming. And I think it's here. And so if you haven't done that yet, your priority for 2024 is definitely to make sure, like you said, that you have the right data in place to be able to implement some of these technologies.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, your comment about you being surprised that this is still an issue after all these years. I mean, there are so many other things related to supply chain where people might think, oh, this has been an issue for so many years, like the idea of forecasting and we're trying to reduce forecast error. That's been an issue for years. So many technologies have come out saying, oh, we can help you fix this. But it's still like one of the top problems that companies say is impacting their ability to meet their customer orders. So isn't that surprising that people are still having trouble with data? Maybe not. Yeah, but yes, but to your point that this is one of the areas that companies should maybe place more emphasis on for 2024. I think it is relevant because it's not just for generative AI, it's for other branches of artificial intelligence as well, because one type of AI that has a lot of use cases today is machine learning. And you need a ton of data. You need a ton of good data to actually get results, or the results that you're anticipating out of machine learning. So the same would hold true for generative AI. And if we see these technology types as being game changers for companies, it does start at the core with having the right data and good quality data too.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's talk about our next article. And this is from Gaines. Now, Gaines talks about how you have unleashed revolutionary decision engineering platform. Now, talk to us about what that means. It's kind of a mouthful. I mean, I love it.
Yeah.
But talk to me about what does that, I think you mentioned it's purpose-built decision engineering platform. Talk to me about what that is and what that actually means.
Yeah. So at Gaines, what we are observing is that there has been an evolution over the past several years on three interdisciplinary areas, and those are operations research. So think about using some math science techniques for modeling, statistics, optimization. Think of think of normally as industrial engineering, then the evolution of decision science and looking at the psychology of how people make decisions and applied math to make optimal decisions. And then the third is data science. So thinking of advanced analytics, artificial intelligence, machine learning, so on and so forth. And as those three areas have started to evolve, we are starting to see them converge and starting to blend together. And our vision is that this platform that we're building is going to be a way for companies to make higher quality decisions by bringing these three capabilities together, where we can start to look at the anatomy of a decision and break the decision down into its discrete parts. Because every decision is different. Every single decision that you make has some different elements that make it different. And so with this platform, it can be a halo on top of an existing technology environment where it can bring in insights from those other technologies to, again, look at the decisions, break things down into its discrete parts, and then help to make more higher quality decisions across the supply chain.
I love the use of anatomy. You're breaking down these decisions and really bringing it into perspective for a lot of people, right? What goes into a decision? What questions are we asking ourselves? Are we asking the right questions? I mean, there's so many things to think about when we go into making one of those decisions. And going back to what you said about forecasting, things are changing all the time. So you're right. You know, it's not surprising that we're still talking about data. We're still talking about forecasting and what that means for us and how can we figure out what disruption is coming next. I mean, nobody really has a crystal ball, right?
And what else we look at too is not just the decision that you're making now, but what is the impact of that decision, which is something that most companies don't do today. They don't look at the impact. They don't do post-game analysis of what the impact of decisions were versus decisions they could have made.
Yeah.
And then we're also trying to figure out how can we also harness all of this disruption and all this risk that companies are facing. So we can start to see how can we start to assign the probability of some disruption actually occurring, and then using that in decision making as well.
And now we're bringing in sports analogy. I mean, I love you, Amber. Post game, you know?
Yes.
Speaking everybody's language at this point.
Yes.
One of the things that I really like that you mentioned in this particular article, everyone is one decision away, and I want to get this right, one decision away from driving meaningful profit and savings. And that was mentioned by the president of Gaines. Talk to us about what that actually means. I mean, I really love that quote.
Yeah. So it goes back to this idea of, again, every single decision that you're making is unique and it's made up of different parts. So a decision could be anything from where might you decide to place a facility, a distribution center that would then dictate how material is flowing through your network. And if you place that in a location that is not the best location, then that might mean that you end up incurring lots of costs for transportation over a period of several months, because it might have to require that material to flow into a part of the United States where there aren't as many customers requesting that flow, right? That material, right? So if you had placed that distribution center in a more efficient area, then you would have more efficient material flow that will reduce the overall cost of serving a customer that is in need of that material or good.
Absolutely. Let Dave know. I might be putting that on a mug and putting that in the shop at letstalksupplychain.com. I'll reference him. But I really, really like that. Now, two more things really quickly before we go to our next article. It says 100% implementation success and 100% willingness to recommend Gaines to other people. Now, those are really big numbers. So congratulations on that. Do you want to elaborate on that just a little bit before we go into the next article?
Yeah. So what stands Gaines apart from others, I believe, is we set very realistic expectations with our customers. So we go into engagements with them, telling them what we can provide, what we can't provide, so that whenever we start to work on a project and deploy a project, we already have the skills, the resources to actually deliver as we had promised, which then leads to a lot of trust in us. And our customers also are very willing to work with us and adopt our technologies, which then leads to happy customers. So they are very likely to recommend us to others.
Awesome. All right, let's go to our last article. Now, this is another survey, and they surveyed a lot of supply chain leaders. And it's interesting because the information is a little bit contradictory to the first survey that we talked about. And that's why I wanted to bring this up, because I thought that was really cool. But before we go into it, Craig says, yes, Gen AI is here and few have teams or funding to take advantage of it. That's right. That's why we wanted to mention it today, because we're going into 2024. And I know a lot of people are looking at budgets right now. All right. So going back to this particular article, it says 95% of supply chain leaders face footprint challenges in 2022. But it also shows that 100% took action for more flexibility, agility, and resiliency. 100% are taking action. I mean, that's not really surprising, but it means that people are looking at redesigning their supply chains. It looks that people, or the supply chain leaders, are pushing their teams to figure out what technology is going to help them with flexibility, agility, and resiliency. What did you think about this article? What did you take away, Amber?
Yeah. So on that point, though, the 100% number, I don't necessarily know if it means that 100% of people, of companies, are making all these investments. It could mean that someone decided to add more safety stock to one of their distribution centers to be more flexible. That's what a lot of companies do these days. When they think of becoming more flexible and agile, it's just, can I just place more inventory? Which of course comes at a cost. So those companies that are more leading are thinking of how to be more efficient end to end and be more efficient with their supply overall. But for the my thoughts about this article as a whole, there is part of the article where it does mention that more companies are showing more willingness to invest in the technology to make their supply chains less vulnerable to geopolitical shock. And it's a combination of investing in these broader supply chain established technologies like Gains, just to help with orchestrating decisions, or just to help with getting better insight into what a service level or safety stock should be. But then it's also those that might already have established tools in place, starting to build more artificial intelligence support and machine learning support to drive more automation / autonomous activity, so that their users or their talent can be freed up to actually make more higher value add decisions to address some of these challenges and geopolitical shocks.
Yeah, instead of just doing. Now, I highly recommend everybody goes and checks out this article. Just a couple of other numbers that came to mind for me. 66% are thinking about bringing supply chains closer or have brought them. 42% are thinking about nearshoring. And 64% took steps to reorganize their supply chains. 89% of them will redesign within the next year. And 68% plan to optimize their inventory, but they're not sure how. And then 92% of leaders said insufficient talent. Now, the question I have around that, is it a resource problem, or is it an unwillingness to train? And that is a discussion for a completely other day, but I want to throw that question out there because I do feel that we've got a lot of great talent that's out there that is willing to learn if we give them the right resources, tools, and investment to be able to do that. All right. So Amber, we are coming up to the end of the show, and I want to just let everybody know where we are going to be, and then I'll give you the last word. So we are going to be in person at Manifest February 5th through 7th in Las Vegas, and hopefully we are going to see you there. All right, Amber, one last word to everybody watching.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, technologies are evolving very, very quickly for supply chains. Vendor like Gains, we are at the forefront of that and really embracing this evolution and trying to find ways to make it easier for you to improve your supply chains.
Love that. Easy and simple. I think that's music to every supply chain person, leader, professional out there. I love that. So Amber, thank you so much for coming on the show with me today and sharing all your insights. And to everybody at home, I will see you here next week. And I've got 2 brand new guests that are going to be joining me in the hot seat. All right. Have a great week.